Hey, we're back with another artifact preview from our upcoming exhibit, Waves of Intelligence, that opens here at the Naval War College Museum. And what I wanted to show you today was one of the uniforms that we're going to have on display. This is from a woman who was an actual full-on officer in the W.A.V.E.S. She actually entered the Navy after World War II, so she didn't work during the period that we're talking about in the exhibit, but the duties that she performed as a W.A.V.E. Are actually very much related to the subject matter we're dealing with in the exhibit. So to tell you a little bit about her, her name was Ensign Eleanor Edwardson, and she was from DC. She actually worked for the Navy before joining the Navy. She was a civilian employee of the Navy in DC, working for the Bureau of Aeronautics, and where she handled running people's background checks to get them security clearances. So that really worked in her favor, I think, because she was accustomed to working with classified and sensitive information. When she got into the Navy, she ended up working in the same field, in the Navy's communications station in DC. But before she did that, she came here to Newport and came through the officer indoctrination course here in Newport. And we've got one of her, the appointment telegram letting her know the day after Christmas that she was going to travel up here to Newport. So that was probably an abbreviated holiday for her that year. But she joined the Navy in December of 1949 and came here to Newport for about 5 months from January to May 1950, training to go through the W.A.V.E.S program, and graduated in May with W.A.V.E.S class W3, and went on back home to DC after she graduated to serve in the Navy for about a year. And what's interesting for us is that she served in the Navy's communications station in DC, first as a watch officer, as a crypto watch officer, and then later on as a communications watch officer. But she was working for an organization called the Armed Forces Security Agency, which is basically one of the forerunners of what we know today as the National Security Agency. And her duties involved mostly working with incoming and outgoing messages, making sure that they were encoded and decoded properly if they contained any kind of classified information. So she did that herself. She supervised people who were doing that and just made sure that everything was being done correctly. When she was in DC working in this building, she was actually in the same building that had housed what we call in the exhibit Op-20G, the Navy group that worked with decoding, decrypting messages, intercepted German radio traffic from the German Navy, directing their U-boats around the Atlantic. So the same room where all those people were working to try and decode that information and figure out where the U-boats were, she was working in that same facility. This is about 5 years after the war ended, so she wasn't looking for German submarines, but by that time the Navy was focused on the Soviet threat. So she definitely would have been working with information probably having to do with where Soviet submarines were in the North Atlantic. After she finished that, she went down to Norfolk and did very similar information there for the 5th Fleet that was headquartered in Norfolk at that time, sending, again, encrypted messages out to ships in the 5th Fleet and receiving them there and decoding them in Norfolk. So she's a great example of the type of work that W.A.V.E.S did during and after World War II, and we're really happy to have her uniform and hope you come here to be able to see it.